The morning began quietly in the tall glass building that touched the clouds. Everyone was busy in their cubicles, typing, calling, and walking fast through the hallways. The CEO's office, at the top floor, was a place most people entered only when something serious had to be discussed. It was quiet, neat, and filled with the soft sound of the city below. The CEO sat behind her desk, reading reports and signing documents. She had a reputation for being calm but firm, the kind of person who got things done without raising her voice. Her assistants knew she didn't like interruptions, so when a soft knock came at the door that morning, everyone nearby froze. She looked up, expecting to see one of her managers or a staff member who needed her signature. But when the door slowly opened, she saw two little girls, no more than 5 or 6, standing shyly in the doorway. They looked so small in their oversized sweaters and worn-out shoes. One was holding a lunchbox and the other clutched a folded piece of paper in her tiny hand. For a moment, the CEO just blinked, confused. "Hello?" she said gently. "Can I help you?" The girls exchanged a nervous look. Then the one with the paper stepped forward and said softly, "Dad's sick, so we came instead." The CEO blinked again. "Your dad?" she asked kindly. "Who's your dad?" The smaller twin lifted the paper a little higher. "He works here," she whispered. "He told us to always be strong, but he's really sick today. So we came to tell you." The CEO stood slowly, walking around the desk to meet them at eye level. "What's your dad's name, sweetheart?" The older twin said it quietly, and the CEO recognized the name. He was one of the building maintenance workers, the man who always came in early to fix lights, clear snow, and make sure everything ran smoothly before anyone else arrived. He was polite, never complained, and always had a gentle smile. "Kipri," CEO knelt down and said, "Your dad didn't come to work today?" The girls shook their heads. "He couldn't get up," one said. "He tried, but he got dizzy. We told him to rest. He said he was sorry he couldn't come." The CEO felt a strange mix of concern and warmth. These two tiny girls had come all the way here just to make sure their father's boss knew he wasn't skipping work. "Did someone bring you here?" she asked. The older one nodded. "We took the bus. Daddy said the office was big and shiny, and we'd find you if we went to the top floor. He showed us on a map once." The CEO smiled faintly, amazed. "That's very brave of you," she said. "But you should have told someone you were coming. It's not safe for you to travel alone." The younger one looked down, mumbling, "We didn't want Daddy to get in trouble." The CEO's chest tightened. She could imagine their morning, the father, weak but worried about his job, maybe trying to hide his sickness from his daughters, and then these two little ones deciding to take his place, carrying his message with such seriousness. "Come in," she said softly, holding the door wider. "You can sit here." The girls walked in slowly, their small shoes squeaking on the polished floor. They sat together on a leather chair, legs swinging, holding hands. The CEO poured 2 cups of warm milk from the pantry, adding a little sugar. She handed the cups carefully to them. "You must be tired," she said. "Did you have breakfast?" They shook their heads, too polite to ask for anything. The CEO walked to her desk, took a granola bar from her drawer, and placed it between them. "Here," she said gently. "Eat this, okay?" The girls smiled shyly and whispered, "Thank you." The CEO sat across from them and said, "Can you tell me what happened to your dad this morning?" The older one spoke first. "He was coughing a lot last night. He didn't sleep. This morning he tried to get up, but he fell on the floor. We helped him back to bed. He told us he'd lose his job if he didn't go to work. But we told him we can go and tell his boss." The younger one nodded proudly. "So we did." The CEO felt a lump in her throat. She had no children of her own, but something about their small voices and brave faces touched her deeply. She said quietly, "You did something very kind. I'll make sure your dad doesn't get in trouble. You can relax, okay?" They both nodded, their eyes big with relief. After a moment, the CEO stood and picked up the phone, calling the HR department. "Can someone check on one of our maintenance workers?" she asked softly. "Yes, his name is on my screen now." I just need to know if he has any emergency contact listed. While she waited for the answer, she turned back to the twins. Do you have someone at home with your dad right now? The older girl hesitated. We told the neighbor lady to look after him. She said she would bring soup. The CEO smiled a little. That's good. And you came straight here after that? Yes, the little one said. We wanted to make sure you knew. The HR manager called back. He doesn't have any family listed, just an address, they said. Should we send someone? The CEO thought for a moment, then said, Yes. Please send a company driver to check on him and let me know what they find. When she hung up, she looked at the girls again. We'll make sure he's okay, she said. Would you like to wait here until we hear something? The girls nodded. They sat quietly, sipping the warm milk and looking around the fancy office with wide eyes. One of them whispered, It's really pretty here. The CEO smiled. Thank you. Your dad helps keep it that way, you know. He's one of the people who make sure this building stays safe and clean. The older twin's eyes brightened with pride. Daddy says he likes fixing things. He says broken things can always shine again if you take care of them. The CEO felt her chest ache at those words. Somehow that sentence felt bigger than it sounded. Time passed slowly. The girls grew more relaxed, pointing at the big city through the window, asking innocent questions about the cars and people below. The CEO answered them patiently, something she rarely had time to do with anyone. When her phone finally buzzed again, she answered quickly. Did you find him? She asked. The driver's voice came through the line. Yes, ma'am. He was at home, resting. Looks like he has a bad fever and exhaustion. The neighbor was with him. We're taking him to a clinic now. The CEO let out a quiet sigh of relief. Good. Please make sure the clinic sends me the bill. The company will cover it. When she hung up, she turned to the twins with a gentle smile. Your dad's going to be fine. He's at the doctor's now. The girls looked at each other, smiling with visible relief. Really? The older one asked. Yes, really, the CEO said. He just needs some rest. The younger one whispered. Can we see him soon? Of course, the CEO said softly. But for now you can stay here a little while. We'll get you lunch and then someone will take you to see him. As the girls nodded happily, the CEO found herself sitting back in her chair, watching them quietly. Something about this moment wouldn't leave her mind. The courage of two small children walking into a world of adults. The love behind such a simple sentence. Dad's sick, so we came instead. She realized she couldn't remember the last time someone had done something that pure, that selfless. It reminded her of something she had long forgotten. The warmth of family, the quiet power of love that expected nothing in return. The rest of the morning passed in gentle quiet. The twins drew on sticky notes with the CEO's pens, creating small hearts and stars. They giggled when the assistant brought them cookies. Everyone who passed the office peeked in with soft smiles. For once, the cold glass room felt warm and alive. When the CEO's phone buzzed again, it was the doctor. He's doing better, the doctor said. Severe exhaustion and mild pneumonia, but nothing too dangerous. He'll need rest for a few days. The CEO thanked the doctor, then looked at the girls. Your dad's resting now, she said softly. He'll be okay. The younger one tilted her head. Did he get in trouble? The CEO smiled. No, in fact, I think he'll be very proud of what you did. Their little faces brightened again, full of hope. As the driver arrived to take them to the clinic, the CEO helped them pack their little lunchbox. Before leaving, the older twin turned around at the door and said quietly, "Thank you for not being mad." The CEO blinked, a soft laugh escaping her lips. How could anyone be mad at such brave girls? They smiled, waved, and left with the driver. When the door closed, the CEO sat back at her desk, staring out at the skyline. For some reason, the city didn't look so cold anymore. That morning, she'd planned to spend her day buried in numbers and meetings. Instead, two small strangers had walked in and reminded her that behind every job, every report, every worker, there were people. Real people with families, hopes and hearts that beat just as hard as hers. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The next morning felt different for the CEO. She arrived at the office earlier than usual, but instead of starting her day with reports and emails, she kept thinking about the two little girls and their father. She had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, focusing only on results and deadlines. Yet something about those children had opened a quiet space in her heart that she didn't know existed. She walked past the lobby, where the same guards greeted her politely, and her eyes moved to the maintenance area. Normally, she would never stop there, but today she slowed down for a moment. The corner looked emptier than usual without the man who always worked there. He was the one who greeted everyone with a soft good morning, even when others barely noticed him. In her office, she placed her bag on the desk and stared out the window. The memory of the girls sitting in her chair, their little hands holding warm cups of milk, still made her smile. She wondered if their father was feeling better. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the driver who had taken the girls home the day before. He wrote that their father had been discharged from the clinic, but was still weak and resting. The girls had been cheerful on the ride home, talking about how kind the nice office lady was. The CEO felt something soften inside her. She decided to check on him herself later that day. It wasn't something she normally did, but something about this situation didn't feel like business. It felt personal. As the morning went on, she attended a few meetings, but her focus was somewhere else. Her staff noticed she was quieter than usual. Around noon, she finally stood up and told her assistant she'd be out for a short while. No one questioned her. When she gave an order, people simply obeyed. The driver who had helped the day before waited downstairs. "Do you know the address from yesterday?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," he said politely. "Let's go," she replied. The ride took them to a modest neighborhood not too far from the city center. The buildings were old but well kept, and children played in the streets. The car stopped in front of a small apartment building with peeling paint and flower pots on the windowsills. The CEO stepped out and climbed the stairs quietly. At the door of a second-floor apartment, she hesitated. She wasn't sure what she would say. It wasn't every day a CEO showed up at an employee's home, but she knocked gently anyway. After a moment, the door opened just a little and one of the twins peeked out. Her face lit up instantly. "You came," she said happily. The CEO smiled. "Yes, I wanted to see how your dad is doing." "May I come in?" The little girl nodded and opened the door wider. Inside, the small living room was tidy but simple. A faint smell of soup filled the air. On the couch, covered with a thin blanket, the twins' father sat up slowly, looking surprised. He looked tired but better than she expected. His face showed a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. "Ma'am," he said quietly, trying to stand. I didn't expect you here." "Please don't get up," she said kindly. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right." He smiled weakly. "I'm fine now, just need some rest. I'm sorry for missing work. I should have called, but—" She stopped him gently. "You don't need to apologize. Your daughters already took care of that for you. They were very brave." At that, he smiled again, glancing at the twins who were now sitting cross-legged on the floor, drawing with crayons. "They told me," he said softly. "I couldn't believe they actually went all the way there. I should have stopped them, but I was so dizzy I didn't even realize they'd left until it was too late." "They were safe," the CEO said, "and I'm glad they came. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known you needed help." He looked down at his hands. "I'm not used to asking for help," he admitted. "Since their mother passed away, I've been doing everything I can to keep things together. I take extra shifts, fix things for neighbors, anything to make sure they have what they need." There was no self-pity in his voice, only quiet honesty. The CEO listened, her heart heavy with respect. "That's a lot to handle," she said softly. He shrugged gently. "You do what you have to do. They're good kids. I just want them to have a better life than this." The twins looked up, smiling as if they understood what their father said. "Daddy makes the best soup," one of them said proudly. The CEO smiled. "I can smell it." "It does smell good." He laughed softly. "It's mostly just broth, but they love it." There was a warm silence after that, the kind that doesn't need words. The CEO glanced around the room and noticed a small table covered with sketches and paper. "Do you draw?" she asked curiously. The man looked a little shy. "Just ideas," he said. Sometimes I draw designs for tools or machines that could make maintenance easier. It's just a hobby. I never studied anything like that. The CEO walked closer and picked up one of the sketches. It was a design for a simple cleaning device, but the structure looked efficient and clever. "These are good," she said, genuinely impressed. "You have talent," he smiled faintly as if embarrassed. "It's just something I do after the girls sleep. Helps me think." "You know," she said thoughtfully, "your drawings could be useful. We've been planning to improve some of our equipment. Maybe you could show these to the engineering team when you're better." He looked surprised. "Me, I just fix lights and doors, ma'am. I don't think anyone would take me seriously." The CEO met his eyes. "I would," she said simply. "Good ideas can come from anywhere. You've already proved you care about this place." He looked speechless for a moment. Then he nodded slowly, still unsure whether to believe her. Before leaving, the CEO placed a small envelope on the table. "This is to help with your medicine and groceries," she said gently. "It's not charity. Consider it support from the company for someone who's always been reliable." He tried to refuse, but she shook her head firmly. "Please, it's the least we can do." The twins ran up to her before she reached the door. "Thank you for helping our dad," one said. He smiled again today. The other one added, "You can come visit any time." The CEO laughed softly. "I'd like that." On the drive back to the office, she felt quiet. Her mind was full, not of meetings or reports, but of that small apartment, the drawings, and the love between a father and his children. She couldn't shake the image of those little hands holding crayons beside sketches of machines. When she reached her office again, her assistant was waiting with a list of urgent items, but the CEO waved it off for later. She opened her notebook and wrote something at the top of a blank page, "Employee Ideas Program," to encourage staff creativity. She didn't know yet how it would work, but she wanted to make sure that people like that quiet maintenance worker would have a chance to be seen. That evening, as the sky turned orange, she sat by the window again, watching the lights come on in the city. For years, her life had been about efficiency and results. Now she felt a strange sense of peace, as if she had finally done something that truly mattered. The next few days passed quietly. The maintenance worker stayed home to recover, but she received regular updates from HR. The twins had gone back to school, and the neighbor continued helping out. Everything seemed stable. One afternoon, while reviewing reports, the CEO received a small brown envelope addressed to her. Inside was a hand-drawn card made with colored pencils. On the front, 2 smiling stick figures stood beside a tall building with shiny windows. Inside, the message read, "Thank you for helping our daddy. He's feeling better now. Love the twins." There was no logo, no fancy design, just 2 children's handwriting and a few smudges of color. But to her, it was worth more than any award she had ever received. She placed it on her desk, right beside her computer, where she could see it every day. Weeks later, the man returned to work. When he entered the building again, everyone greeted him warmly. The CEO happened to be passing through the lobby and stopped to welcome him back. "Feeling stronger?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," he said with a grateful smile. "Thank you again for everything," she smiled. "We're glad to have you back." As he returned to his duties, she noticed the twins waiting outside the gate with their small backpacks, waving proudly at him. He waved back, his face lighting up in a way that said more than words ever could. That moment stayed with her long after she went back upstairs. It reminded her why she had started this company in the first place, to make a difference even in small ways. That night, before leaving the office, she looked once more at the drawing on her desk. Underneath the smiling stick figures and bright windows, the twins had drawn a small heart. Inside it were 3 words written carefully in big letters. "Thank you, friend." She smiled to herself. For the first time in years, the office didn't just feel like a place of work. It felt like a place of life, kindness, and connection. And she knew, deep down, this story between them wasn't over yet. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly returned to its usual rhythm at the company. The sound of footsteps, printers, and quiet conversations filled the hallways again. But something had quietly changed. The CEO noticed it first, the small but meaningful difference in how people interacted. There was more warmth, more patience, more smiles in places where there used to be silence, and maybe it all started that morning when 2 little girls had walked into her office with trembling hands and a brave heart. The maintenance Worker was back now, healthier and stronger, though he still moved carefully. The twins sometimes came after school to wait for him in the lobby. They would sit on a bench swinging their legs and coloring in small notebooks. Many employees stopped to wave or give them candies. The security guard even kept a jar of sweets on his desk just for them. One afternoon, as the CEO was leaving a meeting, she noticed the twins again, laughing softly as they tried to guess how many floors were in the building. She walked over to them with a smile. "Waiting for your dad?" she asked. The older twin nodded. "He said he'll be done soon. We're counting the windows. How many so far?" the CEO asked playfully. The younger one frowned in concentration. 100, or maybe 1,000, she said, then giggled. The CEO laughed gently. "That's a lot of windows. Your dad must have a big job keeping them clean." "He does," said the older one proudly. "He says every window should shine so people inside can see the sky." The CEO felt her heart soften again. "That's a beautiful thought," she said. Just then their father appeared, wiping his hands on a rag. He smiled shyly when he saw her talking to his daughters. "I hope they're not bothering anyone," he said quickly. "Not at all," she said. "They're wonderful company." He thanked her quietly, and the twins ran to hug his legs. The three of them together looked like a small picture of love and peace. A simple family, but full of strength. After that day, the CEO found herself thinking more about the man's drawings, the ones she'd seen on his small table weeks before. She hadn't forgotten how detailed they were. So one morning, she asked her assistant to bring them up from HR, where they had been kept for review. When she spread the sketches across her desk, she couldn't help but feel impressed again. The designs weren't just random doodles. They were clever, efficient, and practical. Some could actually help reduce costs and improve safety for workers. She decided right then that they deserved a chance. Later that week, she called him into her office. He entered nervously, wearing his uniform, his hands still slightly rough from years of work. "You wanted to see me, ma'am?" "Yes," she said kindly, gesturing for him to sit. "I've been looking at your designs. They're impressive." He looked surprised. "You really looked at them?" "Of course," she said. "And I think one of your ideas could help us improve the equipment in our cleaning department. I'd like you to work with one of our engineers to make a prototype." He blinked, clearly unsure if he had heard her right. "Me work with an engineer?" She nodded. "Yes, you know these tools better than anyone. You fix them every day. Your experience is valuable." He was quiet for a moment, almost overwhelmed. "I never thought someone like me could be part of that." The CEO smiled gently. "You've already been part of it all along. You just didn't know it." He sat there for a moment, trying to process her words. For years he had worked in the background, never expecting recognition. Now for the first time someone was telling him that what he did mattered. It was a strange, humbling feeling, and it gave him hope. Over the next few weeks he began meeting with the engineering team. At first they looked skeptical. He wasn't one of them. He didn't wear a suit or hold a degree. But once he started explaining his ideas, everyone listened. He knew the machines from the inside out, every nut, every screw, every flaw. Slowly, respect replaced doubt. The team began to see his knowledge as something unique, something no classroom could teach. Meanwhile, the CEO kept an eye on the progress quietly. Every time she passed by the workshop, she would see him working with focus, adjusting small parts, testing materials, and sketching new improvements. The twins would sometimes peek through the glass door, giggling as they watched their father work like a real inventor. One evening, as the office lights dimmed and most employees had gone home, the CEO walked into the workshop. The man was still there, bent over a table, studying a small machine part. She smiled softly. "You're still here?" He straightened up, startled. "Oh, I didn't realize how late it was. I just wanted to finish this before tomorrow's test." She walked closer and looked at his work. The machine in front of them was simple but smart, a cleaning tool that could save time and reduce strain for the staff. "This is really good," she said. "You've done something impressive," he smiled faintly. "I just wanted to make their work easier. I know how hard it can be." "Sometimes," she said, "the best ideas come from people who understand the struggle." He looked thoughtful. "I guess so, but I couldn't have done it if you hadn't given me a chance." The CEO shook her head lightly. "You earned it." Before she left, she noticed a small photo pinned near his workstation, a picture of the twins holding handmade signs that said, "We love you, "Daddy." It made her heart warm. The next day, the prototype was tested and it worked better than anyone expected. The cleaning team gathered around, amazed at how simple and effective it was. Even the engineers applauded. The CEO attended the demonstration quietly, standing in the back, watching the man smile for the first time in a long while. Afterward, she called a short meeting and announced that his design would be adopted company-wide. The workers cheered, and his eyes filled with tears he tried to hide. It was the first time in years he felt truly seen, not just as a worker but as a creator. That evening, he walked home with the twins, who ran circles around him, laughing and holding his hands. "Daddy, everyone said you're a genius," one of them shouted proudly. He laughed softly. "I don't know about that." "You made something that helps people," the other said. "That's what smart people do." He looked at them, smiling. "Maybe, but the smartest thing I ever did was raise you two." At the same time, back in her office, the CEO sat quietly at her desk, looking out at the city lights. She thought about how one small act of kindness, letting 2 children into her office, had started something so big. It reminded her of her own father, who had been a mechanic when she was young. He used to come home tired and covered in grease, but he always told her, "Hard work is what makes you strong, and kindness is what makes you human." For years she had forgotten those words, buried under schedules and numbers, but now they came back to her like a whisper. The following week, she invited the man and his daughters to a small company gathering. It wasn't fancy, just a simple event to celebrate the new design and thank the staff. When he arrived with the twins, everyone greeted them warmly. The girls wore matching dresses, and they held hands shyly as people congratulated their father. During her short speech, the CEO said, "Sometimes great ideas come from unexpected places, and sometimes courage comes in small sizes, like 2 little girls who walked into this office with nothing but love in their hearts." The audience smiled and clapped. The twins beamed proudly, not fully understanding her words, but knowing they were part of something special. After the event, the man thanked her quietly. "You didn't have to do all this," he said. She smiled. "Maybe not, but it felt right." That night, as she drove home, the city lights blurred softly outside her window. She realized that success wasn't just about profits or projects. It was about people, about stories like his and moments that reminded her what it meant to care. And though she didn't know it yet, this was just another turning point. Because sometimes one act of kindness can echo further than anyone expects. The days after the company gathering felt brighter than usual. Everyone seemed to be walking around with lighter steps. The story of the maintenance worker's invention had spread quietly through the building, and people spoke about it with admiration. It wasn't just about the machine he made. It was about hope, proof that anyone, no matter their job or title, could make a difference. The CEO often found herself smiling whenever she passed by the workshop. The man was always there, checking on the equipment or helping someone fix a broken tool. He worked with patience, never rushing, never acting proud. And every so often, his daughters would come by after school carrying snacks and little drawings for him. One afternoon, the CEO was walking past when she saw the twins waiting again. They waved excitedly when they saw her. "Hello," she greeted them. "You two are here again?" "Yes," the older one said. "Daddy said he'll be done soon. We brought him sandwiches." The younger one opened her small bag proudly. "We made them ourselves. We even put extra cheese." The CEO laughed softly. "I'm sure he'll love them." They sat together for a while, talking about school and their new teacher. The girls told her about how they were learning to read harder words and how they wanted to make a storybook one day. Listening to them made the CEO realize how simple dreams could carry such warmth. When their father came out, he looked a little surprised to see his boss sitting on the bench with his children, but she only smiled and said, "You have good helpers here." He chuckled quietly. "Yes, I do. They're my little partners in everything." After they left, the CEO went back to her office feeling oddly at peace. The world outside her window looked the same. Busy cars, tall buildings, endless noise. Yet everything inside her felt calmer. She had spent so many years chasing goals, deadlines, and numbers. But now she began to see something more meaningful in small moments of kindness. A few weeks later, the company held a review meeting to discuss upcoming projects. One of the departments had been struggling with efficiency and tensions were high. As everyone argued over figures and budgets, the CEO stayed quiet. thinking deeply. Then she spoke up. "What if we involve the staff directly?" she said. "Ask them what would make their work easier. They're the ones who use these tools every day. Maybe they have solutions we haven't thought of." The room went silent for a moment. Then one manager said, "You mean like an employee idea program?" "Exactly," she replied. "Just like the one that started with our maintenance team. Real change begins when everyone has a voice." Her words carried weight. The managers nodded, some surprised, some inspired. It was a new way of thinking, one that valued people before processes. Over the next few months, the new idea program began. Employees from every department were encouraged to share their thoughts. Some sent small suggestions, others big innovations. The CEO made sure each idea was reviewed and appreciated. She wanted everyone to feel what that quiet worker had felt, that their efforts mattered. During that time, the twins' father became somewhat of a quiet hero in the company. People respected him, not just for his invention, but for his humble heart. He never asked for credit, never acted above anyone else. He still greeted everyone with the same gentle "good morning," still helped others fix broken things without being asked. One evening, the CEO noticed he hadn't been in his usual spot. When she asked around, she learned he had gone to the hospital again. Not for himself this time, but because one of his co-workers had fallen ill. He had stayed by the man's side, helping his family with paperwork and keeping them calm. It made her realize how deeply kind he truly was. He wasn't just hardworking, he cared, and it reminded her of the very reason she'd admired him in the first place. The next morning, she sent a small team to help cover his shift so he could rest. When he returned, he came to her office to thank her. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "It was just a friend in need," she smiled. "That's exactly why we did it. Because that's what you would have done for anyone else." He looked touched, his eyes showing gratitude more than words could. That weekend, the company hosted a small family event, a day for employees to bring their children and relax together. There were food stalls, games, and music in the open garden behind the building. The CEO wasn't usually the kind to attend such things for long, but this time she stayed. She watched as the twins ran across the grass, laughing and chasing balloons. Their father sat nearby, smiling as he watched them. The sound of their laughter mixed with the soft music made the air feel full of life. The CEO walked over and sat beside him on the bench. "You have wonderful children," she said. He nodded, his eyes following them with pride. "They're my world. Everything I do is for them." "Do they know how proud you are?" she asked. He smiled. "I tell them every night. Even when I'm tired, I make sure they go to bed knowing they're loved." The CEO felt something stir in her chest. She had spent so many years alone with no family to come home to, no one to share the quiet moments with. Watching them made her realize how much she had missed by living only for work. As the sun began to set, the twins came running over, faces glowing from laughter. They handed her a small paper bracelet they had made out of colored strips. "We made this for you," they said proudly. "You're our friend now." The CEO looked down at the simple bracelet, touched by their gesture. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'll wear it." They giggled and ran off again, chasing bubbles across the lawn. For the rest of the evening, the CEO stayed there, laughing more than she had in years. It wasn't a grand party or a formal event, it was just people, families, and laughter. But it felt real. It felt human. After the event, she couldn't stop thinking about what the twins had said. "You're our friend now." Those words stayed with her long after everyone went home. The following week, she visited their neighborhood again, this time not as a boss, but as a friend. She brought books for the twins and some fresh groceries. When they opened the door, they cheered, running to hug her legs. Their father looked pleasantly surprised. "You really didn't have to do this," he said. "I wanted to," she replied. "You and your girls remind me what kindness looks like." They all sat together for tea in the small living room, the same one she had first visited weeks ago. The atmosphere was warm, filled with quiet laughter. She listened to the twins talk about their favorite stories, and for the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere outside of her office walls. Before leaving, the father said softly, "You've done so much for us. I'll never be able to thank you enough." The CEO shook her head. "You already have," she said. "You showed me what really matters in life." He looked confused, but she only smiled and left it at that. That night, when she returned home, She placed the little paper bracelet on her bedside table. It was fragile, just folded paper, but it meant more to her than anything she'd ever earned. From that day onward, she started changing how she led her company. She encouraged balance, kindness, and understanding. She began every meeting with a simple reminder. Behind every report, there's a person. And slowly, the company grew not just in profit, but in spirit. Employees became more connected, more supportive, more human. It was as if one small act of love, two brave little girls walking into her office, had started a quiet chain of goodness that touched everyone. Months later, when the twins came to visit again, they ran through the lobby with the same joy as always. But this time, the CEO wasn't just their father's boss. She was truly their friend. They handed her another drawing, this one of all four of them standing under a big sun, smiling. Below it, in uneven handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for being our sunshine." The CEO felt her eyes sting as she looked at it. She placed it in a frame on her desk, right beside her computer, where it would remind her every day of how everything had begun, with one sentence spoken softly by two little girls. "Dad's sick, so we came instead." And though life moved on, that single moment continued to echo quietly in her heart, changing not just her company but her forever. Months passed and the company continued to grow stronger than ever. The new culture of kindness and creativity had changed everything. People spoke to each other more openly. There was laughter in the cafeteria, teamwork in the hallways, and respect that wasn't forced. It was genuine. The CEO often thought about how one small act of courage had started it all. If those little girls hadn't walked into her office that morning, she might have never known the man who fixed lights had the heart of an inventor, or that two children could remind her what compassion truly looked like. One rainy morning, the CEO stood by her office window watching raindrops slide down the glass. The city looked calm under the gray clouds. On her desk sat the framed drawing the twins had made, the one with the bright sun and the words, "Thank you for being our sunshine." Every time she looked at it, she felt warmth rise in her chest. Her assistant walked in quietly. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Who is it?" The assistant smiled. "You'll want to see for yourself." When the door opened, in walked the twins, a little taller now, their faces glowing with excitement. Behind them stood their father, holding a folder in his hand. The CEO smiled instantly. "Well, this is a lovely surprise." The older twin ran forward. "We came to show you something." The younger one held out a piece of paper proudly. "We made a picture of our new home." The CEO took the paper carefully. It was a drawing of a small house with flowers in front and three smiling figures. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "You moved to a new house?" Their father nodded. "Yes. We finally managed to rent a little place closer to the girls' school. It's small, but it's ours. I wanted to thank you again for everything you did. If it weren't for you, I don't know where we'd be." The CEO shook her head gently. "You did this yourself. I just gave you the chance you deserved." He smiled quietly, then opened the folder he was holding. "Actually, there's something else. I've been working on a new idea. I thought I'd show it to you first." Handed her a few papers, drawings, sketches, and notes written neatly in pencil. It was another invention, something simple but clever, designed to make cleaning tall windows safer. As she looked through the pages, she realized how much he had grown. The details were sharper, the designs more advanced. "This is excellent," she said with genuine admiration. "You've really developed your skills." "I've been studying a bit at night," he said almost shyly. "Just online courses. I want to learn more about design. Maybe one day I can do this full-time." "That's a wonderful goal," she said. "And I'll help you however I can." He looked surprised, but she meant it. She had come to respect his determination deeply. Just then, the twins climbed onto the small sofa near the window, watching the rain. "It's raining, but it looks pretty from up here," one of them said softly. The CEO smiled. "It is pretty, isn't it?" Their father turned to her and said quietly, "They talk about you a lot, you know. You're their hero." She felt her throat tighten. "They're too kind," she said, smiling gently. but the truth is they're mine." There was a moment of quiet between them. Not awkward, just peaceful. It was the kind of silence that exists between people who understand each other without needing words. As the rain eased, the CEO walked them to the elevator. The twins waved as the doors closed, their laughter echoing in the hall. When they were gone, she went back to her office and looked again at the framed drawing. The colors had faded a little, but the message still felt fresh. A reminder that kindness never really fades. Weeks went by, and the man's new invention was tested successfully. It became another project the company decided to use, and soon, he was promoted to a permanent design consultant. He couldn't believe it when he received the letter. His hands shook as he read the words. The day he signed his new contract, he brought the twins to the office again. They wore matching ribbons in their hair and carried a small cake with "thank you" written on top in frosting. They presented it shyly to the CEO. "We made this for you," the older one said proudly, "because you helped our dad's dream come true." The younger one added, "Now he smiles every day." The CEO crouched down to their level, smiling. "Then you helped my dream too, because all I ever wanted was to make this place one where people could be happy." They all laughed together, and for a moment the big office didn't feel like an office at all. It felt like home. Over the next months, their bond grew stronger. The CEO would sometimes visit their home on weekends, bringing books for the twins or plants for their garden. The girls would show her their drawings, and their father would make tea and tell her about his new ideas. It became a friendship built on trust, respect, and gratitude, a friendship that none of them had expected but all of them needed. One evening, as they sat together in the small living room, the CEO looked around and smiled. The house was simple, but full of life. The walls were covered with the twins' artwork. The air smelled of soup and warm bread. "This place feels like love," she said softly. The man smiled. "That's all we've ever had. Love and hope. Sometimes that's enough." "It's more than enough," she said quietly. The twins came running in with a photo album. "We made this," they said proudly. Inside were photos of the family, their school days, birthdays, and even one picture of the CEO holding their hands in the office lobby. "We wanted you to be part of our family book," they said. Her eyes filled with emotion as she turned the pages. "This means more to me than you know," she whispered. That night, when she returned home, she realized how much they had changed her life. They had reminded her that kindness was not a weakness. It was a strength. It built trust, healed wounds, and created connections that no amount of money could buy. A year later, the company celebrated its anniversary. It was a grand event. Lights, music, laughter everywhere. The CEO stood on stage, giving a short speech to her employees. "This company was built on hard work," she said, "but it was saved by compassion. A long time ago, 2 little girls walked into this office because their father was too sick to come to work. That moment changed everything. It reminded me that success is not about numbers. It's about people." The crowd listened silently, moved by her words. She looked over and saw the twins sitting in the front row, smiling proudly beside their father. "They taught me," she continued, "that kindness has power, the power to change lives. And if we all choose to care a little more, the world becomes a kinder place." The audience erupted in applause. The twins waved from their seats and the CEO smiled down at them, her eyes glistening. After the event, the man walked up to her and said quietly, "You've changed our lives forever." She shook her head gently. "No, you changed mine." He smiled and they stood there for a moment, 2 people from very different worlds, connected by something simple and human. As the night ended, the twins ran up to her, each holding one of her hands. "We're proud of you," they said in their sweet, honest voices. She laughed softly. "I think I'm the one who's proud of you." They all walked outside together into the cool evening air. The city lights sparkled around them like stars fallen to the ground. The twins looked up and said, "It looks like magic." "It is," the CEO said softly, "because you're part of it." And as they stood there, the hard-working father, his 2 brave little girls, and the woman whose heart they had changed. It was clear that the story that began with a single act of courage had become something much greater. It wasn't just about a company or an invention anymore. It was about kindness, connection, and the quiet strength that lives inside every person willing to care. And though years would pass, though the girls would grow up and the world would keep moving, that one small story, "Dad's sick, so we came instead," would live on in every heart it touched. Because sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest lessons. And sometimes love walks into your life in the most unexpected way, holding a lunchbox, clutching a note, and whispering a sentence that changes everything forever.